now about the European strategies for green transition. In 2022, the Council of Europe released a special recommendation for teachers and educators. Could you tell us something about this relevant document?
Absolutely, but maybe I will start first by, as a link between the first question and the second one, explain very briefly the various tools and instruments we have at EU level to support the green transition with education. And basically, the first thing is what you've just spoken about, which is a political tool. And we need political tools, especially because, again, education is not of European competence. But we still can have tools inviting member states to converge towards common objectives. And this is precisely the objective of a council recommendation. So we got to that now, huh? And I'm going to say a couple of words about that later on. So it has been adopted last summer, 2023. But we also design and define some, I should say, methodological tool in a way to frame the competences. So for instance, the competence framework. And I know that we're going to talk about that also later on. Green Comp is a competence framework on sustainability, and we need that. And then obviously we've got financial tools that are obviously very important at European level to incentivize green education. So in particular, Horizon, of course, projects on the Erasmus Plus project. But we can also, and that's what we do also, provide some dedicated research on various research. There's also a working group, for instance, that was set up by the DG in charge of education, the DG EAC, as we call it, dealing specifically with schools on learning for sustainability, where you have experts coming from all the member states who are sharing information and they're producing recommendations on white papers in order to invite also and to help, to support, to inspire the education community at large on green education. And finally, there's also a last tool that has been developed recently in the frame of the Erasmus Plus program, which are the Erasmus Plus Teachers Academy. And they are experts and teachers gathering together and working on various given topics. And there are 3 at the moment, fully dedicated to green education. And there's a new call that has just been launched in February for 16 new Teachers Academy that will also help greening education in a way. But let me now focus on the Council recommendation. I think it's an interesting document. First, we needed it. We needed it because it's a document where we have 27 member states telling to themselves, in a way, what they should do in order to strengthen our capacities regarding sustainable education. And the first thing I want to quote, because to my view, it's one of the basic, really, it's the second recommendation in that Council recommendation, but maybe the most important one. It goes like that: establish learning for the green transition on sustainable development as one of the priority areas in education and training policies and programs in order to support and enable the sector to contribute to a sustainable future embedded in a holistic understanding of education. You've got almost everything there. You understand that it's about considering that sustainable education is a priority, which is, of course, a very important political decision, but also to work on programs and on policies with a holistic understanding of education. And that is very interesting and very important, because we need to understand from the very beginning that when it comes to green education, you need to have a whole institution approach, and to understand that we're talking about something which is by nature, by definition, fully transversal. So it's not possible to consider that as a box, if you want, and then you put what you need to put in that box, as you have a box on, I don't know, history and mathematics. When it comes to sustainable education, you need, by definition, to think transversally. And that makes things more complicated, but it's also the only way really to get where we want to get. So the document, I invite, of course, all the people listening to read carefully the document. It might sound like a boring, official document, but it's interesting in the way it has been conceived. On the recommendation, the very recommendations it contains that are not just, about making priority and things like that, making, of course, investing in green education, obviously. There are a set of recommendations that are going into the details of what should be done for member states, so at system level, I should say, but also for educators, also for formal and non-formal education, and also for institutions. So it's interesting, and also for the European Commission. So it means that there's a long list of various recommendations for various targets. And let me quote just a few. At the level of a system, for instance, of course, it's about curricula, investment, awareness, cooperation, etc. You will see, of course, it's about investment, for instance. It's very important. But when it comes to support learners, and then one would consider, oh yeah, I mean, there won't be a recommendation about the learners because it's a level of detail which is too high for such a document. And it's not the case, which is what, to my view, it's super interesting. They say this, for instance, because of course I won't say the list of various measures because you just have to read the text. But one in particular, to my view, is super interesting and will explain why that document is really interesting. It says, it goes like that. So it's about facilitating learning methods and approaches that are collaborative, experiential, practically oriented, and relevant to local context and traditions, and about supporting interdisciplinary and cross-curricular activities. I will stop there, it goes on. So you see, it's not only about telling the member states or the member state telling themselves we should do more and we should invest more. It's also about considering what it entails when it comes to the teaching and learning process itself. And as it's something which is transverse, green education is, as I said before, by nature transversal. It's also about really considering or reconsidering new ways of doing things by investing much more on experiential learning, project-based learning, for instance, interdisciplinary approach. And then from there, you understand immediately that, of course, at system level, if you want to adapt and to tackle these challenges, you need to change, of course, the way education system or training system are considering teaching and learning and are organized. So this is why it's very ambitious in a way, but it's also very, very interesting. And also because, and that's something I used to say here and there, but it's really something I really believed in, is that we need more than ever cooperation. And this is also one of the main objectives of such a document, to say we need to learn from each other. We need to share good practices. We need to look at what's happening in Italy, in France, in Romania, or whatever, because we are all facing the same problem at the same moment. And this is something really of historical proportion, because education and training system are facing challenges always, of course, depending on the regional or national context. But the fact that you have all education and training systems at the same moment facing the same needs and challenges, this is something which is really interesting and requires, obviously, more than ever, coordination and cooperation. So I will stop here. And I just, about cooperation, because I think it will be a good link, of course, for an incoming question. The Education for Climate Coalition that you can see behind me is part of the instruments that have been set up precisely to support that required cooperation.